All right, diving right into it today, we're tackling some Japanese grammar.
And it's amazing how these seemingly small things, they can really unlock like a whole new level of understanding.
Absolutely. We're looking at lesson 2.2, right?
Yeah, 2.2, yep.
So for our listeners who, maybe they cracked open the textbook, they saw these new grammar points, what's the overall goal here? What are we trying to achieve in this deep dive?
I think it's all about building up that confidence, right?
Right.
Like you've got the basics. Now it's like, how do we actually use them? How do we sound more natural?
Right, because I remember when I first started with Japanese, it was like, I can read the hiragana, I can read the katakana, but then putting it all together into sentences, that's where things
Yeah,
got, like, real.
exactly. And that's kind of the bridge we're building here. So in 2.2, we've got I adjectives.
Okay, I adjectives, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they work a bit differently than what we're used to in English.
Uh-huh.
Like let's take black car. In English, adjective comes after the noun, right?
Right, black car.
But in Japanese, it flips. You'd say kuroi kuruma.
Oh.
So kuroi, black, comes first, then kuruma, the car.
Oh, so it's almost like you're highlighting the blackness before you even mention the car.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift in emphasis, and you see it throughout the language. It's about the what and then the thing.
Interesting, okay.
And this lesson actually has a perfect example. It says, Kono kuroi kaban wa ichiman gosen en desu, which translates to, this black bag is 15,000 yen.
15,000 yen for a black bag. That's like, whoa. Okay, but I see what you mean. Like, even in that sentence, it's black bag first, then the price. It's like you emphasizing those details.
And that's just one example, right? But as we go through this, you'll see how these I adjectives, they really add a new layer of depth to how you speak.
I'm already seeing that, yeah.
Right. So it's not just describing something, it's almost like painting a picture with your words.
Okay, I like that.
So moving on, let's talk about asking what kind questions.
Oh, okay, what kind? So we're getting a little more complex now.
Yeah, we're building on what we just learned. And your lesson gives this great formula, right? Donna and desuka. A-I-N desu.
Don and desuka. A-I-N desu. All right, break that down for me. What are we looking at here?
So donna and desuka basically means what kind of N is it? And A-I-N desu is how you describe it. So N is your noun, whatever object you're talking about.
Okay.
And A is your I adjective that we were just talking about.
Oh, okay. So it's like, what kind of blank is it? It is a blank blank.
Exactly. And they give a really good example in the lesson. It's Koko wa donna heya desu ka? Koko wa donna heya desu te?
Yeah, so heya means room, and akarui means bright.
Akarui, bright. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
what kind of room is it? It's a great room. Nailed it. Okay, you see, there it is again. Bright.
Yeah.
Akarui, that I adjective coming before the noun room.
Yeah.
It's like it's becoming clearer now, this pattern.
Yeah, and the more you see it, the more natural it becomes. It's like my brain's starting to rearrange itself to think in Japanese or something.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned akarui, bright, because that actually ties into a whole concept in Japanese aesthetics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called akari, and it's all about valuing natural light in a space, how light interacts with the interior.
So it's not just about a room being well lit. It's deeper than that.
Exactly. It's about creating a certain atmosphere, a sense of serenity. It's a whole thing.
So even in a simple word like bright, there's all this cultural context.
Layers of it, and that's what makes language learning so fascinating. You're not just learning words, you're learning a way of seeing the world.
That's a really good point. Okay, so we've got our I adjectives, we've got our what kind questions. What else are we packing into our Japanese toolkit today?
Well, now that we can describe things and ask about specifics, let's talk about how to combine those descriptions smoothly. Right?
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with it.
And for that, we've got a word, soshite.
Soshite. All right, and what does that mean?
So soshite means and, but it's more than just a simple and. It's like this elegant way of linking your descriptions.
Okay, give me an example. I got to hear this in action.
All right, so your notes have a great one. It says, Kono kuruma wa uki desu, soshite takai desu.
Kono kuruma wa oki desu, soshite takai desu.
Yep. So let's break that down, right? Kono kuruma means what?
This car
This car, right? Uki desu means
is big.
is big. Perfect. And then you have your soshite, your and then takai desu, which means
Expensive, right?
expensive, exactly.
Okay, so the whole thing is this car is big and it's expensive. All right. But it does feel like that sociite, it adds something more than just a plain and. It's like this car is big, and what's more, it's also expensive. Like you're building up the drama a bit.
Yeah, yeah, there's a flow to it, isn't there? It's very smooth, very natural.
It's subtle, but I can hear it.
It's those little things, right?
Okay, so we've got descriptions, I adjectives, we've got these what kind questions. Now we're connecting it all with sociite. I I feel like we're laying down some serious groundwork here.
We're building a foundation, for sure. And you know what?
Yeah.
Speaking of foundations, there's one more essential element we got to cover today.
Ooh, lay it on me. What else is there?
Time. We got to talk about telling time in Japanese.
Ah, yes. Time. The universal language, except when it isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every language has its quirks, and Japanese is no exception. But I think you'll find it pretty straightforward, actually.
Well, that's good to hear. Break it down for me. What makes Japanese time unique?
So your lesson does a really good job of explaining it step by step. It starts with the hours, right?
Okay.
So instead of saying like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you use the numbers 1 through 12 followed by G.
GG. Okay.
Right, so Ichiji is 1 o'clock, Niji is 2 o'clock, and so on.
Ichiji. Okay. So far, so good.
Pretty intuitive, right?
Yeah, it's making sense. What about minutes? How do you say like 5 past, 10 past in Japanese?
So minutes are equally straightforward. You generally just add fun after the number.
Fun. Okay.
Yeah. So go fun is 5 minutes, jumpin is 10 minutes, jugo fun 15 minutes. You get the idea.
Fun for minutes. All right, I like it.
Easy to remember, right?
It is, it is. Well, what about those in-between times, like quarter to or half past? How do you say things like 5 minutes to 3 in Japanese?
That's where mai and sugi come in. So mai means before and sugi means after.
Mai and su. All right, I'm writing this down.
They're really helpful for pinpointing those exact times. So, for example, if you wanted to say 5 minutes before 3 o'clock, you would say sanji go fun mai.
Sanji go fun mai. Okay, so it's the hour, then the minutes, then mai for before.
It's just
And if I wanted to say 5 minutes after 3, it would be sanji go fun sugi.
you got it.
Yeah.
Sanji go fun sugi. You're a natural.
This is way less complicated than I thought it would be. I was expecting some crazy system with like different words for every minute increment.
No, not at all. Remember how we talked about Japanese being very concise and clear?
Yeah.
That applies to time, too. It's all about efficiency.
Wow, it's like they've streamlined the whole process. No wonder their trains run on time.
There you go.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's a certain elegance to how Japanese handles time.
It's really interesting to see how it all connects, like the grammar, the culture, even something as simple as telling time.
It's all part of the bigger picture.
And we're just scratching the surface, right?
Oh, yeah. We're just getting started. Well, we've talked about describing things, right?
Yeah.
Like with those I adjectives.
Right, right. Making those descriptions really pop.
Exactly. And asking about them, like what kind of this, what kind of that. But now imagine you want to combine those descriptions.
Yeah.
Make them flow together.
Okay, yeah, because like I can say this car is big and I can say this car is expensive, but it'd be smoother to say this car is big and it's expensive.
There you go. You get it. And that's where sociite comes in.
So shite. Okay.
It means and, but it's more than just a simple and. It's like this little linguistic bridge that connects your ideas so smoothly.
Okay, so it's like the and in this view is breathtaking and these food is incredible. It's like you're adding emphasis.
Exactly. You're building on the previous description. And the best part is your lesson already has a perfect example. It says, kono kuruma wa oki desu. Soshite takai desu.
Kono kuruma wa okay, oki desu. So that's this car is big.
Right, and then
So shite takai desu. And it's expensive. See, there it is.
Yes.
That smooth transition.
right. It just flows, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, this is making sense. It's like with every new word we unlock, it's not just adding to our vocabulary. It's like it's changing how we think about structuring sentences in Japanese.
Exactly. You're starting to internalize the rhythm of the language, the way it all fits together.
It's like my brain is slowly morphing into a Japanese speaking machine. Okay, so we've got descriptions down. We can ask about those descriptions. We're connecting them with sociite. What else is there to conquer in this lesson?
Well, now that you mentioned conquering, there's one more essential element we got to tackle. Time. We got to talk about telling time in Japanese.
Oh, time. Right, because every language has its own way of slicing and dicing the hours and minutes. What's the Japanese approach?
It's actually pretty straightforward. Your lesson does a great job breaking it down. It starts with the hours, just like we're used to.
Okay, so like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But instead of saying o'clock, you use G after the number.
All right.
The Ichi-ji is 1 o'clock. Ni-ji is 2 o'clock. You get the idea.
Ichichi, 1 o'clock, Niji, 2 o'clock. Okay, that's pretty manageable.
See? Not so bad.
Not bad at all. All right, so what about the minutes? Because, like, saying 3 o'clock is one thing, but how do you say 3:15 or 3:30 in Japanese?
That's where it gets even easier, I think. You just add fun after the number of minutes.
Fun. Okay, so, like, go fun is 5 minutes.
Exactly. Go fun is 5 minutes. Japan is 10 minutes. Jugo fun, 15 minutes. Just keep going like that.
Fun for minutes. I like it. It's kind of catchy.
Right. It sticks in your brain.
It does. It does. But, okay, I gotta ask, what about those times that fall between the hour marks? Like, how do you say quarter past or 5 minutes to in Japanese?
For that, we've got two handy words.
Yeah.
Mai and sugi. Mai means before, and sugi means after.
Okay, mai and sugi. And how do those work exactly?
They're all about precision. So let's say you want to say 5 minutes before 3 o'clock. You would say, Sanji go fun me.
Sanji go fun me. Okay, so it's the hour, then the minutes, then May for before. And if I wanted to say 5 minutes after 3, it would be Sanji go fun sugi.
You've got it. See, you're a natural at this.
This is way less intimidating than I thought it would be. I was expecting, like, a whole new set of words for every 5-minute increment or something.
Nope. Japanese is all about efficiency, remember?
Right. Keep it simple.
Exactly. Clear, concise, that's the Japanese way. And you know what? That same principle applies to a lot more than just telling time. It's like they've taken this whole idea of like clarity and efficiency and applied it to the entire language.
And you know, it's funny you say that because like when we think of Japanese culture, we think of like precision, right? Like their engineering, their craftsmanship, it all has this amazing attention to detail.
Exactly. It's like it's woven into the fabric of their culture, and the language reflects that.
I'm seeing that more and more as we go through these lessons. It's like those cultural connections just make it all the more fascinating. But okay, let's bring it back to our listeners for a second. For someone who's, you know, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed, maybe they're just starting out with Japanese, what would you say is like the key takeaway from all of this?
I would say don't get lost in the weeds. Focus on those small victories, right? Every new word, every new grammar point, it's a step forward.
It's like those aha moments, right? Like when you finally get how to use so shite correctly or you nail that what kind question, it's a win.
Celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
Because they add up. It's a journey, not a race, right?
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny, like when I think back to when I first started learning Japanese, I was so intimidated by like the thought of ever being fluent. But then I realized it's not about reaching some finish line. It's about like enjoying the process, the little discoveries along the way.
And those discoveries, they can lead to some really cool places. You know, like suddenly you're understanding cultural nuances you never even knew existed just from learning a few grammar points.
Exactly. Like who would have thought that the word bright could have such depth?
It's all connected.
It is. And, you know, thinking about it, with everything we've covered today, from describing things with I adjectives to asking what kind questions, linking our descriptions with sociite, even telling time, like those are some pretty solid building blocks.
Those are fundamentals. Those are things you'll use every single day when you're speaking Japanese.
So if you're listening to this and you're like just starting out, remember, like those seemingly small things, they're actually huge.
They're the foundation for everything else.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. When I first started learning Japanese, I made a ton of mistakes.
Everyone does.
But it's those mistakes. That's how we learn, right?
100%. Embrace those mistakes. They're your best teachers.
So to all our listeners out there, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to mess up. Just have fun with it.
Exactly. The more you enjoy the process, the more you'll stick with it.
And who knows, maybe someday you'll be like haggling over the price of a 15,000 yen black bag in perfect Japanese.
There we go. Now you're thinking.
This has been awesome. I always learn so much from these deep dives.
Me too. It's amazing how much there is to unpack, even in just one lesson.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Japanese. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.